And so, like, Stephen wants to try to position this as like any critic of this as some leftist. It's like, no, anybody who is not for a massive sales tax increase is against this. And up until about 2 minutes ago, that included conservatives.
Tim Miller of the Bulwark got some pushback from MAGA Ghoul Stephen Miller. We're going to take a look at Tim Miller discussing this. I'm going to share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Hey guys, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. Trump's top domestic policy advisor, Santa Monica Gobbles himself, Stephen Miller, has come after me on social media over a position that I thought was like a pretty standard free market position. He's calling me part of the left for saying this. I'm going to run down what happened here. Make sure to subscribe to the feed. Appreciate, I guess, that the Trump administration is monitoring what we're saying over here. We did have my colleague Andrew Egger had the opportunity to question Trump press secretary last week about his crypto grift. So they're keeping tabs on us. Here's what happened. They made the announcement this morning about the deal with China, where we've de-escalated the trade war down to 30% tariffs, which is a 20 percentage point higher rate than we were paying before Trump came in on tariffs from China. It is significantly lower than the insane 145% total trade embargo that we had with China. So I wrote this about it. Yay. So happy that we'll be paying 20% higher taxes on all Chinese goods in exchange for nothing. Great victory, Chairman Trump. Art of the deal. I wrote in Chinese lettering. Stephen Miller responds to that. Fascinating to watch the left embrace the proposition that all American factories should be relocated to Asia. This is not at all responsive to my critique, to say the least. I'm not saying that anything should be relocated to Asia. I do not think there is really... Is the administration even making a coherent argument that this 30% tariff will lead to more factories being built here? I have not heard that argument, and they've been all over the place. This tariff was 10, it was 20, it was 30, it was 80, it was 145. Now it's back down to 30. Like the idea that just this madness and this uncertainty and this like random, like putting your finger in the wind and deciding what the tariff rate should be today is the way to get American factories to be built here in America is just insane. I mean, it's totally against reality. And you could maybe make some arguments that we could do some targeted tariffs on specific industries on China, and that we could have incentives here, and we could create some stability and give manufacturing businesses some confidence they could be built here. Like that's a sane industrial policy. We can argue about the merits of that. I mean, Joe Biden had an industrial policy that was, frankly, a little bit left from my point of view, but that invested a lot of money in factories to be built here in America and chips factories. So that is one path to building factories here. And there are a lot of different various policy levers that could be pulled to encourage manufacturing here. Like having totally schizophrenic tariff rates on China, I've not even seen any America First people make a coherent argument that is going to yield more American factories coming here. But really, like the funniest thing in here is that like this is Stephen Miller saying that I'm on the left now. I guess I don't take that as an insult if the right is Donald Trump, but Stephen Miller saying that I'm on the left because I opposed this 30% tax they're putting on working Americans, on the people that they say are their base, the forgotten man. Who is going to pay that 30% tariff on goods coming into America? It's going to be mothers and fathers, parents, who are going to have to pay more for their strollers and their car seats. It is going to be anyone that was buying, clothes online from China. It's going to be electronic parts. I got to tell you, I don't know if you've been to MAGA America. I have. I've been to some SEC tailgates, and there are a lot of folks out there that are buying big screen TVs to watch their football on, and that's fine. That's great. That's the American dream, even though Scott Bessent says that it isn't. It's just going to be across the board, all of these products, all of these goods. Some of them, some like the semiconductors and this high-end manufacturing, like we should try to bring that back to America. We should try to decouple it.
And Tim Miller is exactly right with what he's saying here. And Stephen Miller and the rest of the Trump administration are absolutely saying that these factories are going to come back to the United States or be built anew in the United States. I don't really know how that's going to happen, and what's also very interesting about this is throughout Trump's first term, Biden's term, and now the second term of Trump, these propagandists like Stephen Miller can just turn on a dime. Something that they believed strongly yesterday, they can believe completely the opposite today. Imagine if Bernie Sanders or AOC or anyone on the left or a Democrat were saying, American kids have too many dolls. They don't need 30 dolls. They can have 2 dolls. Or American kids have too many pencils. They only need 5 pencils. Imagine what Fox News and all of these right-wingers like Stephen Miller would be saying. It would be communism and they're against the free market and blah, 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 blah. But now they are saying, Stephen Miller and the rest of MAGA, Americans have too much and they need to make do with more and they need to sacrifice and blah, 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 blah. So there is no ideology other than whatever the dear leader says. The MAGA troops like Stephen Miller are going to parrot.
There are certain things where some people are going to want to choose to pay higher prices for shirts, that are made in America. And that's totally appropriate in a free market. But it's people whose budgets are tight, who need to buy household goods, clothes, electronics, and the prices on all of those goods are going to be more expensive for them. It is going to be a lot of these, companies that do manufacturing that are going to be paying higher prices on the parts or the components of their product that come from China. So it's like everybody's going to be punished. And this is one of the biggest tax increases in American history that is being put in place by a Republican White House. And so, Stephen wants to try to position this as any critic of this as some leftist. It's like, no, anybody who is not for a massive sales tax increase is against this. And up until about 2 minutes ago, that included conservatives, that included Republicans, that included people on the right. It includes Rand Paul, libertarian Rand Paul, who's been the one principled person talking about this over in the Senate Republican conference. So kudos to him. So I guess, I don't know, is Rand Paul a leftist now? Are me and Rand Paul leftists because we don't want a random 30% increase on Chinese goods with no actual strategy associated with it? With no plan to, invest in America to offset it, with no real decoupling plan. It's just this is it's like a shit throwing monkey. Throwing shit at the wall and being like, 30, 80.
That's a good analogy for Donald Trump that I haven't heard anybody make before.
140. This is not industrial policy. This is not economic policy. This is not conservatism. It's nothing. It's a narcissistic buffoon emoting, and his little henchman, Stephen Miller, his little Gollumish henchman, defending whatever he does, whatever the dear leader does, as something that it is necessary to support to stay in good standing inside the cult, inside the right. And so, guess what? Not a member of the cult, not interested in signing up for that, Stephen Miller. I'm able to assess the merits of your policies, outside of the construct of whatever dear leader does is good. And I assess this policy. I assess your policy of trying to do a deal with China, and at the end of the deal, ending up with a 20% higher tariff, a 20% higher sales tax on the American consumer in exchange for literally nothing. Literally nothing. That has been your art of the deal. We're ensuring that people pay 20% more on goods they get from China on the one side, and on the other side, we get nothing.
And I love the descriptions by Tim Miller of Stephen Miller, which I believe and I hope is no relation, and Donald Trump. And like Tim Miller is saying, one of the huge keys with this is that in order to make these tariffs work, there has to be investment on the part of the government, the U.S. government, to incentivize companies to build factories here, which is what Joe Biden did with the CHIPS Act. But this is an administration that doesn't want to spend money on anything unless it's, a parade to honor the dear leader, or it's increasing the defense budget to $1 trillion a year. They don't want to spend money on anything. So they're not going to say, okay, auto manufacturers or TV manufacturers or whoever, we are going to provide incentives for you to build the factories here so they aren't built in China or wherever else. But Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are not going to do that. So this is all going to happen by magic somehow, apparently. Or it just won't happen and it's all a scam. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with Tim Miller, or do you agree with Stephen Miller? I can't imagine anybody agreeing with Stephen Miller, but I've seen comments online of people talking about how wonderful he is and how lucky the country is to have him. I don't think even his own family likes him, but here we are. So let me know what you think, Tim Miller or Stephen Miller. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.